Now would be a good time to pivot while moves are being made to oppress us even more. So the black church is quiet. All of your black leaders are quiet, right? No one's, your intellectuals, no one's stepping up or providing any resources and or solutions. They're just watching this happen as if they're helpless. But there is a God, right? And I'm thankful that I could be here to explain what it is that has been put in my head to tell you. So we should take our 2 trillion in purchasing power and move into another jurisdiction, one that we control. Now, I will explain that, but um, first, right, for all of you out there wrestling under their politics and pretending to know your rights, well, now it's time to show that you know how to exercise your right to govern your own affairs as a people. That's what time it is. That's what it's come to. So the paramount duty of government is to protect. When that protection fails, and you all know it failed us a long time ago. But when that protection fails, the people have the right to govern and protect themselves. That's a basic fundamental principle, right there. So with 2 trillion in value under another jurisdiction, we'd have the finesse of countries like Canada and Mexico. We could invest in our neighborhoods, our children. We could build schools and banks and other social constructs, things to our interest. And we could do this without needing to leave America. I know how much y'all love America. So all of this can be done and we don't have to go anywhere until the Lord returns and he pull us up out of here. Right? So earlier you heard me, say pivot into another jurisdiction. And most of you are like, what is that? Right? So first thing we want to do is I want to take you, let's look at the legal definition of a state. I'm going to use the legal definition because most people speak using the general sense of a term, while the rest of the world around them, they use the same term, but in a legal sense, leaving a great divide in communication and a sea of confusion with countless pools of chatter that lead to nowhere. And it's also called a misunderstanding with consequences, right? But let's look at this definition for a state. This is the legal definition for a state. A state is sovereign in its territory, which is also known as a jurisdiction. So here we can see a state is a territory, a jurisdiction is a state, is a territory. So we're going to learn how these states, how these territories, how these jurisdictions, how they overlap one another using the same geographical location, and they can function and operate without interfering, with one another. And then should there be a problem, due process of law comes into place, meaning you got to take somebody to court. And that's what we see a lot of times on the large scale when the federal have an issue with the state, or if the state has an issue with the federal, they sue them and take them to court. Well, it's time for us to get on that level, of the playing field, to where we're not wrapped up into their politics, but we're dealing with things based on our own interest and our own need, y'all. And we have 2 trillion in purchasing power that we could convert to value that will help us to do the things that we want to do, and we don't have to beg and and ask the master and continue to play like this helpless slave. We are a strong and powerful people. It's unfortunate though that the black church and your black leaders and your intellectuals, none of them have come to bring this. But God said He would use those that are not even thought of, those that are considered to be nothing, to tell and to or to bring these things before you, right? So most of you talking about, jurisdiction and talking about state and territory. I'm gonna say this: most of you consider yourself to be a resident of the state, don't you? I mean, you've heard that term. Most of you walk around and you say, "I'm a resident of the state." You have no idea what that term means. But to say that you are a resident of the state, it implies that you are a belonging to the jurisdiction. That's why they do so many things, for example, with civil rights and what you call your right to vote, which is nothing more than a privilege, to vote. It's because you subjected yourself to their authority and or power by or under the jurisdiction. Well, let's just move out of the jurisdiction. There's no monopoly on jurisdictions. Who can have one, right? Because they overlap. That's the way it's set up. So anybody can have a jurisdiction if they have the wherewithal to understand how to function within that mode and what it means to govern, themselves and their affairs. And you all don't forget, we have 2 trillion in purchasing power. So we won't be helpless. Our greatest conflict would be coming together. But thankfully, with what's happening now today and how they're stripping everything, away from us, they're making Israelites and Negroites needing to come eye to eye and convene, and we got to talk this out. We have to figure out what we're going to do. Or are we just going to sit back and let them smash us like a bug? Again, we're going to sit back and just watch this again? No, this is a call to action. We got to do something. The Israelites and the Negroites alike, we're going to be forced to think about what we're going to do, how we're going, to do it. Who's going to control it? How are we going to do it? In the name of God or in the name of corruption? How do y'all want to do it? Right? But when you talk about rights, I just want to tell you, it's something that a state or a government, they can't grant or deny you, the right. Now, these things are written. Like when you look at Miranda, the supra for that, it tells you where rights are secured by the Constitution are involved, where rights secured by the Constitution are involved, there can be no rulemaking or legislation that would abrogate them. So then you look at Hurtado versus California, the principle that a state cannot diminish the rights of the people is supported by several Supreme Court cases. So they can't interfere with your rights, but you'll say, but they do it all the time. They change laws and they do it all the time. They do what they want to do. It's because you've considered yourself to be a resident of the state, meaning you belong to their jurisdiction. So yeah, they can do what they want to do. But when you move yourself up out of that jurisdiction and you establish yourself, within the same playing field as a jurisdiction, having the same, benefit, privileges, and rights to navigate and deal with commerce and do the things that's to your interest, it changes the game. Right? So the reason we could have a jurisdiction to govern our affairs and they can have their jurisdiction, which they have, to continue governing their affairs, it's because of something called conterminous jurisdiction. Now, here's another legal term. So Coterminous, which is Coterminous. It's the same as what you've heard me say before, conterminous jurisdiction. But the coterminous jurisdiction refers to two or more jurisdictions that share the same boundaries or have the same scope of authority, meaning they cover the same geographical area or legal matters. Right? So here, you all, this is a solution for us in this time of panic, wondering what we're going to do. And while the black church and your black leaders and your black intellectuals are all sitting back helpless and, just complaining, and everybody just continuing to, throw out those pools of confusion, or to that the chatter, uttering within those pools of chatter, bringing about the misunderstanding with consequences, right? Here's something, for us to consider. Like I said, the biggest problem, can these Negro lights come together, right? How are we going to do it? Are we going to do it in righteousness, or are we still going to function and seek to be corrupt? So, with that, I just want to say we have a solution. Create our jurisdiction, a conterminous jurisdiction. The paramount duty of government is to protect. They failed to protect us, so now we have the right to protect ourselves. We have a right, you all. They can't grant us or deny us this right. We just need to move into it, like we used our right to go into their jurisdiction and say, we'll let you handle our affairs. Well, that time is over. It's time for us to handle our own affairs. Just want to say thank you, to those of them that have done all these things, that's coercing us to come together and have to convene and see eye to eye, the Israelites and the Negroites in a room together. We're going to have to bang this thing out, y'all. Otherwise, we're going to die.